Hi, welcome to another in our series of vlogs of why answers are not always the answer. In this series we're talking about some of the very difficult questions in market research. Predominantly the one is that people aren't always just able to tell us why they do what they do, and people often don't do what they say. And this is a big problem for a research industry that relies very heavily still on asking people direct questions, either in focus groups or in big quant questionnaires or in communities, etc. We're just not very good at reporting on our own behaviour. So, the reason we're going to talk about today is all about where we do research. And I don't mean the place that we do it in. I mean where mentally we do it. Let me explain. There's a fundamental psychological problem with research, is our brains are designed to work in a particular place. And quite often we do research that isn't in that place. So, we can have three respondent mindsets when we do research rather. We can talk about what's happened in the past. That requires respondents being able to introspect on their experience, consciously mentally reconstruct something that's happened previously, and then report back on it, relying on our memories. Now, that can provide some information, but quite often that information isn't terribly accurate. Why? Well, because of various reasons. Predominantly, memory isn't a complete record of something that's happened. We simply don't have the mental capacity. Our brains would be about 20 times the size if they needed to record everything like it was on a video recorder. Memory is actually a culmination of what are called schematas. They are representations of experiences. So if you go into an office, you won't remember that specific office experience. You remember bits of it, but you remember the place, not as the place you went to, but as a culmination of everywhere that you've been to. So essentially we have an archetype and we bolt things onto that archetype. We just add to it every time we go and do something. So it's not a new experience we're recording, it's the same thing just being added to. And because of that, when you ask people to recall something or recall an experience or recall why they did something, they'll tell you more about that archetype. They'll tell you more about that general thing rather than the specific thing you might be interested in. And even though we're very good, and memory is really designed actually to sort of retrieve how we felt about something at a time, and that comes back automatically. But all of the detail of why we felt that is very commonly missing. Okay, so that's dealing with research in the past. We do that a lot. But we also try to do something even more difficult. We try and get people to predict the future. Now here's what people have got to do. They've got to go in, introspect into their mind. They've got to invent something that doesn't actually exist yet, like a new product or a new situation, a new fixture in a shop, a new whatever it might be. And they go into that, their mind space. They try and imagine that, and then try and imagine what they would be and consciously mentally reconstruct this new experience that they've never had. And again, we are really, really poor at doing that. And I can show you an example of this. This is a book that I had when I was doing my computer studies O-level, more years ago than I'd care to admit. But this was a reliable prediction of what computers were going to be like in the future. Now, you can note some things that may be a little bit familiar. There's a little automatic hoover hoovering the floor. We've got those now. But look at the rest of it. There's a massive mainframe in the front room. Big speakers, whatever. Yeah, they didn't predict miniaturization. The guy upstairs, he's got a screen and a big clunky keyboard and a pen with a thing on it to attach it to. We haven't got those. And what the kind of eating thing in the bottom right hand corner is, I genuinely don't know. Some kind of like press a button and get food out. But none of that has happened. But what's more important is what isn't there. The things that we do have now, the internet, didn't predict that. Mobile phones, they didn't predict those. The idea of using gestures, visual technology, all of the things that we are, smart speakers even, all of the things that are in our day-to-day lives now, we didn't predict. Why? Because all of this is very much, it's sort of like an abstraction of what was going on at the time. The assumption that there would be a mainframe, because we knew what mainframes were back in the early 80s. We kind of knew that there were these sort of keyboards and we could possibly draw on something back in the 80s. We knew about that, and it's just an abstraction of all of those things. And actually the impact of computers is far different. Basically, when we try and predict something, we almost reliably every time get it wrong. So what's the brain designed to do then? If we're not good at past and we're not good at the future, what should we be doing? Well, the answer is that the brain works best now, in the moment. That's when it's designed to work. It's designed to be in a situation, to be in a context, to absorb all the information from that context, stuff that we may or may even not be aware of, and then act on it, and then do something, and then respond to it. Essentially, information comes in and this flow of intuitions and emotions comes out. And those are the things that really drive our behaviour, not the kind of conscious reasoning that goes on. And I can prove this to you with a little thought experiment that I want you to do. Because the brain is effectively designed to do one job. So what I want you to do is think about your record collection. Think about the albums that you've got, and think of your top 10 albums, the ones that you've listened to many, many times. Now what I want you to do is think of all the tracks on those albums and name them all in the correct order as they appear on the album. Now, I'm fairly sure I would give you a chance to do this, but I'm pretty certain that the vast majority of people can't do that. I can't do it, even though they're albums I've listened to hundreds of times. Because actually trying to consciously reconstruct something is difficult. But I guarantee that if you are listening to that album and one track finishes, you will automatically know what the next one will be. You'll probably know the starting lyrics, the starting notes, the starting tune, possibly even actually pitch the tone correctly. And that's because our brain is designed to do one thing and one thing alone, and that is predict what happens next based on being in a context or an experience. That's what our brains are designed to do. So with that in mind, this is why at Gorilla in the Room we've created a lot of visual technologies that allow people to experience things either through augmented reality or through virtual reality and experience them as if they are actually there. And that way we can capture those automatic experiences, capture what the brain's designed to do, to have an experience and chuck out this what happens next feeling. And from that way we're much better able to predict how people will behave in the future. Visit our website, click and subscribe, and thank you very much.